Hi, my name is Jess. I am 23 years old and I am 3 years into my eating disorder recovery. I was diagnosed with anorexia, orthorexia, and OCD, all of which led me to the darkest season I have ever experienced. At the time, I had no idea how much these factors would influence the trajectory of my life. I thought they were my comfort zone, my control panel, my way of making things right. Little did I know that they would make it impossible to live and to live fully. I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling a little nervous to share my story. I don't do this often with people, even though I have the desire to do so. But before I get into any of the details, I do want to warn you that I am not going to be unfiltered about the truth behind eating disorders because I don't want to stray from reality. So that being said, if you have a hard time with medical or other triggering topics, this video might not be for you. Now, my sincere intentions are not to put myself in the spotlight, shame other people, or cause any sort of discrepancy. Rather, I hope to bring an awareness to a real issue that goes on behind closed doors all over the world. When human struggles are left in the dark or belittled, the only way to truly understand them is by sharing these experiences. I feel that my story is not too far from many other people's stories. And while each individual is on their own journey, we are all more connected than you may think. I especially learned this when I healed amongst my ED recovering friends. Now, for some background, I'd like to share key moments of my life that shaped this part of me. Since I was as young as I can remember, I did dance. It became a huge part of my life. There is this universal perception that ballerinas have body dysmorphia, and unfortunately I came to know it firsthand. The beginning of my teenage years were the hardest. When COVID-19 became a huge deal, I found myself trapped by the pressures of social media because I'd gained weight and I was not eating very well. So then I resorted to following influencers who ingrained philosophies in me that were damaging to my physical, my mental, and my emotional health. I became very, very self-conscious and frequently controlled what I ate or how I was moving my body. The biggest culprit behind my behaviors was comparison. I was comparing myself to social media influencers, to other people around me, to girls I was jealous of. I was very unhappy with myself. But since I was graduating high school and transitioning into new and exciting things, I tried therapy for the first time. It seemed to help until my therapist tried to convince me that I didn't actually have an eating disorder. Something told me that she was wrong. When I moved away to college in fall of 2021, I was super excited to just let it all go and pursue my theme of freedom. The funny thing is, I really did commit to it. I ate whatever I wanted, did whatever I wanted, felt whatever I wanted, and it did feel freeing. However, I bore the consequences after 2 whole semesters of the YOLO mentality, and I found myself in a pit. I got out of my very first dating relationship, and my eyes were open to who I had become. I believed that I didn't look well, nor did I feel well. Once again, I fell back into my controlling behaviors when I went home for summer, and I attempted to transform my body, mind, and soul, yet this time the damage was much more detrimental. My sophomore year of college, I started off very uptight with myself. I had entered a fresh new relationship and I wanted everything to be perfect. I felt pressured to be his dream girl in every way, so each morning, day after day, I overexercised and underfueled. I would lift super heavy weights at 6 a.m. in the morning, then barely eat enough to sustain myself for the rest of the day. And by the end of the day, going to bed seemed impossible because my body was so unbalanced between exhaustion and starvation. Those two combined is just a body that is numb. So each night, I would lay there for hours, hoping that my body would eventually shut off, but I never fully fell asleep. I never fully felt asleep, but just as though I was kind of drifting or dreaming every night. At one point, I took on the keto diet and cut out all sugar as well. The only thing I allowed myself to have for dessert was 1 Nutter Butter. I remember sitting in my 1 hour, 15-minute classes and feeling my stomach twist in knots or make really loud rumbling noises. And I was always embarrassed that my classmates next to me would hear it. And yet it never occurred to me that maybe I wasn't eating enough. That is how foggy-brained I really was. Eventually, this became a threatening cycle of self-harm that I didn't know was possible. My hair became paper thin and my skin was super pale and dry. I had endless bloating, but no menstrual cycle. My muscles were so weak and I was constantly fatigued. Brain fog and uncontrollable emotions were quite frequent, and most significantly, my heart rate dropped very low.
All right, sweetie, you ready to get some new notebooks and protractors and slacks?
I want blue jeans.
You're getting slacks!
By this point, I did not even feel alive. I went home for Thanksgiving break that year, and my sweet mama expressed loving concern over my well-being. Even though I couldn't see it, and no one else seemed to care, she did. Her strength to confront me with this matter saved my life. After an ER visit and lots of research and careful consideration, we did the only thing that was left to do.
I look absolutely awful, but this is reality. I just woke up. I'm home for Thanksgiving break. I haven't weighed myself in a very long time. Well, I take that back. I did not too long ago, but it wasn't even this bad. Oh, I'm all shaky. I just weighed myself and I'm 106. That's really bad. It is so bad. I didn't think I was that underweight. And it's terrifying. Oh, this is recovery. This is way harder than I thought. It's gonna be okay.
I finished off finals that school year with what little energy I had left. I nearly failed my chemistry exam. And after that, I dropped the college scene and started a recovery program at ERC. I cannot tell you how frightening it was to process all of this so quickly. I was in denial for quite some time and refused to believe that I would have to do therapy and force feeding every single day for months. I remember staring at the hospitalization schedule over and over again, trying to understand how I could even begin to accept this new routine when I was so used to the college routine of going to class, doing homework, yada yada. I didn't want it, and that's what denial does to you. On January 5th of 2023, I started my first day at ERC with full faith that I would recover. It was the biggest juxtaposition between feeling at home and feeling like a prisoner. Just within a few short days, I was taken to an actual hospital. Refeeding syndrome was beginning to take a toll on my body because I was having symptoms such as achy legs or just constant dizziness. And this is something that is normal for anorexic patients to experience during the refeeding process, since the body sort of goes into shock after eating lots of food so quickly. They kept me there for several nights, monitoring my heart and my vitals. And it was during these moments that I felt so broken. My mom was very kind to be there and speak words of truth and light over me. But I was so angry. Angry at the world, angry at my situation, and angry that I couldn't help myself. Everything was so out of control, but control was all I ever wanted. It was agonizing laying in a hospital bed and wondering how I even got there and if I would ever get out of there. But I knew I had to come to terms with reality. Once I was able to return to my recovery program, I felt so much better. I was more motivated than ever to let my team of therapists, dietitians, psychologists, and nurses help me heal. I grew to love being at my second home, and food became a really enjoyable thing. While it was physically and mentally painful, I learned more about myself and others than ever before. I discovered that I am not as shy as I thought I was, and my ability to think deeply about life was a gift. Developing relationships with other ED patients was the best part, as I finally felt like someone understood what I was going through, and they really did. I ended up in heartbreak once again in the midst of my recovery, and this really affected the way that I healed. Part of me concluded that I was just unlovable and that recovering wouldn't make anything better. But having to step into a season of singleness and heal on my own, with God right beside me, was such a beautiful challenge. The loneliness refined and it humbled me as I was stripped from everything that I thought I wanted. After a few months, I moved down to a partial hospitalization program and only had to visit my recovery center a few days out of the week. This was scary as I became responsible for managing my own meals and my own movement. I got a job in the area and continued to heal my relationship with food and my body. Everything started to feel normal and I understood what it meant to be alive again. Finally, on March 23rd of 2023, I graduated from ERC. The confusing part is I didn't want to leave. I had cultivated a family and a place of comfort there. I spent the rest of that summer trying to find myself post-recovery. There were lots of ups and downs, and I made many, many mistakes, but I never gave up. I had the tools necessary to keep fighting for my life. Eventually, I re-enrolled in college and resumed my studies as if I had never left. During that new semester, I got my first tattoo to remind myself of how I was brought from death to life, all because of Jesus. He had paid the price on the cross so that when I was too deep in my sin, I wouldn't have to bear that weight. The victory had already been won all along. I just needed to surrender. Looking back now, 3 years later, I would say that my recovery journey is not over yet. I still have a lot of trauma to work through, and these tribulations still haunt me from time to time. I have my moments, but nonetheless, I am grateful that I've been given the tools and the strategies to overcome any roadblocks that I may encounter. One thing I know for sure is I never ever want to go back to the Jessie I knew because she was so lost and so afraid. And that is what keeps me going. Finding strength in the Lord as I live in the present and look forward to the future. Oftentimes, I still wonder why I care so much about my body and what other people think of me, because none of this will matter when we reach eternity in heaven. My prayer is that you are inspired or motivated by my story to make a difference in this broken world. We all have our own challenges, and no one should have to go through them alone. If you made it this far, thank you for sitting with me and listening. I, in return, am always here to listen if you ever need anything. Jesus loves you so, so much, and he can make all things new. How beautiful it is just to know that. I love you guys, and thank you again for watching.